I grew up in a small coastal village, the kind where the smell of the sea mixes with fresh bread from the bakery every morning. My father was a fisherman, and my mother sold fish at the market stall. Life was simple, hard, but honest. Ever since I was a child, I dreamed of the world beyond the horizon, the one the boats seemed to touch before disappearing. While the other boys wanted to learn how to cast nets, I would sit and draw boats in old notebooks, imagining what it would be like to live far away from there. When I turned 18, I decided to leave for the city. I remember my father's face on the pier, holding his hat with both hands. "The sea will always be here, son," he said. "But don't forget where you came from." I promised I wouldn't, but deep down, I couldn't wait to leave everything behind. In the city, everything felt bigger, faster, and colder. I got a job as an intern at a small architecture firm and started studying at night. Money was tight, days were long, and homesickness was constant. Still, I felt alive, as if the world was finally opening the doors I'd always wanted to walk through. Over time, my efforts started to pay off. I was promoted, then hired by a bigger firm, and suddenly I was designing buildings I'd only seen in magazines. I made friends, met influential people, and started dressing in ways that the village boy I once was would never recognize. When I went back to visit my parents, I brought expensive gifts but said little, as if part of me no longer fit there. Time passed, and the phone calls home became rarer. The last time I spoke to my father, he told me his boat was getting old and that maybe it was time to stop. "The sea's given me what it had to give," he said in that calm voice that always irritated me. I replied quickly, promising I'd visit as soon as I could. But time didn't wait. A month later, I got the news. My father had suffered a heart attack at sea. I returned to the village like someone stepping back into an old dream. Everything looked the same. The smell of fish, the sound of seagulls, the salty wind brushing against my skin. But inside me, everything was different. The funeral was simple, just the way he would have wanted. When I looked at the sea that day, I finally understood what he meant by, "Don't forget where you came from." I had chased the future so hard that I'd left my past adrift. I stayed longer than I planned. My mother, now alone, refused help, saying, "Life goes on." One day I went to the port and found my father's old boat, half sunk, abandoned by the dock. I ran my hand along the worn wood and felt a lump in my throat. In that moment, I realized I needed to fix more than just the boat. I needed to fix my connection to this place and to the person I used to be. I decided to stay for a few months. I woke up early, helped the fishermen, went to the market, and for the first time in years, the silence of the sea seemed more beautiful than the noise of cars. At night, I drew again, but my projects were different now. Simple, functional houses made for real people. Little by little, I began designing things that meant something. Things that touched lives, not just skylines. Weeks turned into months, and without even realizing it, I had rebuilt my father's boat.
The day I took it back to the sea, my mother stood by the dock, waving her handkerchief, just like she did when I was a child.
The wind was strong, but the water was calm. I sailed for a while and let the boat drift freely, with no destination, just floating, as if setting his spirit free. When I went back to the city, something in me had changed. I turned down big offers, left the firm, and started my own studio, dedicated to building sustainable homes for small communities. People called me crazy, but I knew what I was doing. For the first time, my work felt alive. It had a heartbeat. Today, I live between two worlds, the sea and the city, and I've learned that you don't have to choose just one. When the wind blows and I smell salt in the air, I remember my father, the boat, and the promise I made. He was right. The sea is still here, inside me, and it reminds me every day not to forget who I am. And sometimes when work is done and the sun slowly sets, I close my eyes and almost hear his voice in the wind. "See, son? The tides always return. You just have to be brave enough to return with them." And in that moment, I know he never truly left. He simply became part of the sea that guides me.